Hello, that's working. Okay, so hi, this is my Toolkit project. The topic is increasing diversity in education. And first, I wanted to show us a very quick video just to give some context on uh, the topic of my toolkit. I thought it was a good video. Just the first minute.
There are about 50 million children in American public schools today. Over half of them are people of color. Their teachers, over 3 million of them, are overwhelmingly white. And as the gap between teachers and students widens, the problem becomes bigger and bigger. So why is this such a big deal? Students of color are lower performing. White students have average scores of at least 26 points higher than black students in math and reading on national exams. What's more, studies have shown that children of color are more likely to be harshly disciplined for the same behaviors as their white peers. In LA, black students make up 9% of the students, but 26% of the suspensions. Chicago, 45% of students, 76% of suspensions. In Boston, black girls were 11 times more likely than their white counterparts to be suspended. In New York, that number is 12. Black children make up less than 20% of preschoolers, but make up more than half of out-of-school suspensions.
It's something about those students that's informing the decision to use really punitive discipline within those spaces. And so we need to be talking about these other things, talking about why it is that we're so punitive.
But when kids
And that's all I wanted to show. I thought that was an interesting video. How do I get back? Okay. So many of us know that there is a problem within diversity in schools when looking at the demographics of students across the US. But what about the teachers? Is it a problem? So in this presentation, I'll be helping identify why it's a problem, why diversity is important, the benefits from it, and how to improve. So first, identifying the problem. So just to start with some facts that I found. So 72% of teachers in the US are white. This is a large majority, given the fact that the US is only about 57% white. And given the fact that the percentage of people of color in the US increases every year. For example, in this little figure I have, it shows that from 2010 to 2020, the percentage of people of color increased by 276%, while the white population declined by 8.6%. So wouldn't it make sense that the diversity within occupations all around the US, or in specific teachers in the US, would increase as well? But surprisingly, this 72.3% of teachers, it's actually quite a stable number. So even though the percentage of people of color is increasing, the percentage of white teachers in the US remains pretty stable. And there could be a ton of reasons why that's true. However, I would like to suggest that it may be due to implicit biases during that hiring process. And to combat that, I think would be a good idea, and I get into this later, to set up some kind of diversity standard within schools to help it be more racially balanced. So why is diversity important? So one source that I found states that the lack of diversity reflects the growing resegregation of American schools. And another source, Civil Rights Project at the UCLA, says something kind of similar, that the US continues to move backwards toward increasing minority segregation in highly unequal schools. So this shows that there has to be some amount of benefit to having diverse teachers within schools. And studies have shown this. I'll get into that in the next slide, but just summary. Teachers' diversity promotes empathy, flexibility, and overall tolerance towards people of color. So these supporting studies, one study was done on college roommates. So while white students were either assigned Black roommates or white roommates, And what they did is that they measured the white students' empathy towards minority groups before and after they were roommates with these Black students. And what they found is that those that were assigned Black roommates were more empathetic towards people of color and also more likely to say that they have personal contact and interact comfortably with people of color. So another study about test scores shows the effects of diversity on students' test scores, specifically within communities with higher populations of people of color. So the study measured the test scores of students that had teachers that were people of color versus those that were white. And what they found is that the students that had teachers that better represented the students within these communities with large amounts of people of color actually had smaller gaps in test scores. And this basically just means that students performed better on tests. So the next study was done kind of in a similar fashion, but instead they measured high school dropout rates. So what they found is that low-income Black students were 39% less likely to drop out if they had a Black teacher in high school. Pretty crazy. And another study, very similar to that, they found that by having one Black teacher by third grade led to a 13% increase in likelihood of attending college. And having two Black teachers by third grade led to a 32% increase of attending college later on. So that just kind of emphasizes the importance of having diversity in teachers. Other than that, there's also other benefits that diversity can bring to the table, such as benefiting students' mindset. So by having a diverse teaching staff, students are able to hear new perspectives that weren't previously able to hear at home or through friends. This is especially a problem, I think, within higher education, which is typically white male dominated. So there's not much diversity and new perspectives to hear. And also to bring in the idea of intersectionality, that could also play a huge role in helping students gain new perspectives. So not only taking into account a teacher's racial group when it comes to diversity, but also their gender, experiences, and such. And I thought this quote kind of summed it up a little bit. So what are some ways to improve? I think that I was talking about this in the beginning, but by setting up policies within schools that almost force them to hire a more diverse workforce, that would be a more direct way of fixing the problem. So setting some kind of policy standard where schools have to hire a certain amount of racial groups or genders, or basically what I was just talking about, in order for them, to keep going. But some other ways that could help is by establishing collaboration between schools and historically Black colleges. And this could kind of help schools and students gain more exposure to diversity as well, as well as more diverse perspectives from working in collaboration with these historically Black colleges. So in a way, it can kind of act as a boost to having a diverse teaching staff. And lastly, I wrote that by actively reviewing policies from the past and present to see if the intended effect is being met, and if not, how can we fix it? So kind of actively looking at past policies or policies that you're thinking of going in to see if they're working or doing what they're supposed to do. And that's it. These are my sources. Thank you. Stop this.